Mm.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Muckamel, and I'm co-president along with Hannah Hostick of the Friends of the Stirling Road Library. It's nice to see everybody on this evening. I'm going to now introduce Shelly Isaacs, who I know all of you know. He's got a big following. Shelly is the founder of Cafe Cinematheque International and is known for teaching film at various universities and is one of South Florida's most accessible experts on foreign language film. We thank you, Shelly, so much for being with us tonight and for all your movie programs. And as a reminder, as you all know, that these programs are made possible because of all the members like you, and we really appreciate your donations. I will write this in the chat, but if anybody had questions for Shelly Isaacs, he can be reached at cafecinematheque@gmail.com. And like I said, I'll put it in the chat for all of us. Also, if you'd like to have any information on how to join our friends, you could write to us at stirlinglibraryfriends@gmail.com, or you could see our events and activities on calendars at stirlingfriends.org. Tonight's discussion, I think it's going to be wonderful, is on the Scent of Green Papaya, and that was a Vietnamese language film. Also, Ida is going to be on February 23rd with Shelly Isaacs. And we are really fortunate and very lucky because Shelly is going to be with us through May 1st. So on our calendars, you can check out all the films that are coming up. And thank you, Shelly, so much. And we're ready to begin.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening. I hope you all, hi, Arlette. I hope you all enjoyed the film, The Scent of Green Papaya. It is from 1993, actually, and it's actually a French co-production. The director's name is Tran Anh Hung. Tran Anh Hung. Hung was born, and he usually, it's the reverse of the name. His name is Hung, was born in South Vietnam in 1962. And following the fall of Saigon, he emigrated to France with his family at the age of 12. So he essentially grew up in France. He attended university in France, studied philosophy, and after seeing a film by one of cinema's most renowned directors, named Robert Bresson, he fell in love with filmmaking and decided that would be his vocation. And for the last 20 years, the last 20 years, he has been at the forefront of a wave of acclaimed overseas Vietnamese cinema. When I say overseas, it's not necessarily made in Vietnam. His films have received international recognition and acclaim by audiences and critics alike. His first three films were varied meditations on life in Vietnam. The first being The Scent of Green Papaya, then a film called Cyclo, also about life in Saigon, more adult life in Saigon, and then the Rays of the Sun, Diagonal Rays of the Sun, which told the story of three sisters growing up in Vietnam. He went on, after the trilogy, went on to direct an internationally cast thriller in English, entitled I Come with the Rain in 2009, and followed that up with a highly acclaimed Japanese love tragedy entitled Norwegian Wood. Norwegian Wood, also an award winner. His films provide audiences with another point of view on Vietnam. While the topic has been so long dominated by French and American cinema, especially dealing with the war on the United States part and dealing with colonization on the French part. He says that he sees art, especially the art of cinema, as the truth wearing a mask, and denies the conventional storytelling style and rather pursues making films with a new language to challenge the audience's feelings, making them enjoy the films not with the critical reasoning, but with the language of the body. And he clearly demonstrates that in the film, watching Mui as a young girl and then as an adult. For The Scent of Green Papaya, he was awarded the Camera d'Or Prize, the Golden Camera Prize at the Cannes Film Festival in 1993. He was given a Best First Film César or French Academy Award the same year, and was nominated for the 1994 Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. To date, he is the only Vietnamese director who has received an Academy Award nomination. The film is a poem for the eyes. It is a poem for the eyes. The first half introduces us to Mui and the family she will serve, composed of a mother and father, 3 sons, and the husband's mother. We come to see that the mother still mourns over a daughter who died very young, To, at 7 years old, and her husband is basically a philanderer who disappears for long periods of time, while the grandmother never leaves her bedroom altar and blames her daughter-in-law for her son's behavior, believing she was the wrong choice for him, unable to make him happy, which is why he wanders. Also, it's interesting to see the family dynamic. There are also the 2 little brothers. When Mui arrives in 1951, she's 10 years old. And I love the opening of the film as she wanders in at night, looking around and finding the home, and she's welcomed in by the cook, the other servant, and the cook, who will indoctrinate her into the family. She is hardworking and curious. She personifies what Hung calls the innocence of a Vietnamese society that exists in grace and tranquility, still years away from the withdrawal of the French and a country torn apart by the destruction of war. The camera reveals how nature and its inhabitants are a welcome part of Mui's world. She observes her natural surroundings in great detail as we watch her, this innocent little girl. She looks at the ants carrying a small piece of bread. She studies the frog sitting on a leaf, a cricket jumping at night, one of which she creates a little cage for and keeps it as a pet, which is very popular in that part of the world. And it is also how we see her experience the papaya. When the cook tells her to shave the papaya, she decides to cut it in half when she says throw it away, and she sees the little seeds within the papaya. She learns the careful art and preparation of food. We also see tension that arises when the 2 youngest sons are conflicted over their father's behavior. Mui accepts her place with patience, serving the meals, preparing the vegetables, working in the garden, scrubbing the floors, and polishing the shoes. True to the Buddhist ideal of being in the present moment, Mui studiously carries out every one of her tasks, quietly and respectfully, refusing to be affected by the torments of the young little son and what he does. He's a piece of work, the little one. Anyway, there's a lovely little interlude in that first part with the elderly man, Mr. Tuan, who comes by and gives you the green apple. Everybody looks and says, who's this old man, coming to see her? And she welcomes, she knows who he is. Mr. Tuan, an elderly gentleman who relates to her the story of how he always loved the grandmother. And she married someone else, and how she's never come out of her room for 7 years. So he's never had a chance to see her, and how Mui coaxes him. Well, you can see her. Just go up the stairs quietly and you'll see. He says, I can't do that. She'll see me. And he does. He goes upstairs, and I love his smile when he looks and he sees her from behind, and he just smiles. I mean, it's every moment in this film just provides a good feeling, except for the relationship between the mother and the father. But she's like a child in a fairy tale. The first half is like a child in a fairy tale. The film chronicles this series of little changes that rearrange the life of the family, all the while sustaining the work that shapes Mui's existence. And then there's a wonderful scene when the mother comes down because she sees Mui as a replacement for her daughter. She sees her that way. And there's a scene where she comes down at night, she sees Mui sleeping, and she just smiles, looking down at her as if this is her daughter. This is her daughter. The first half of the film culminates when the father returns and he gets sick and eventually dies. And we see that transition, that wonderful transition. It just goes right to Mui. She's now 20. It's 10 years later. And beset by hard times, similar to what was happening earlier in the film when the husband stole all the money and jewels. She didn't have any money for rice, and finally people were coming back to the shop and buying the bolts of cloth. But now they're really in trouble. The daughter-in-law says that it's a pity that Mui has to go to Koyen. They may not treat her as well. It's interesting what's being set up. She says to the son and to us, she may not. And we also hear from the mother. The mother prepares a dress and a bracelet and a necklace for Mui, which she was going to give to her daughter, and she gives it to Mui. And she says it's a pity that the oldest son, who we saw at the beginning, has gone off to write his novels because she was hoping that he would become her husband. And that's interesting because if we remember, there's that one scene where she dresses up in the first half of the film, and she's looking at herself, and we don't know what she's doing. And she brings in the service tray to dinner, and who's there but Koyen, the son's friend, and she's in love with him at first sight. So it has that fairy tale quality. He is Prince Charming, who is unapproachable at this moment in time. But then when the mother gives her the dress, jewelry, and is sending her on her way, it's to work, and she really doesn't realize where this is going to lead. She loved him as a young girl, but now it's a whole different set of circumstances. The mother sends her off with that dress and bracelet. Her final breakdown is very interesting at that. Remember, she breaks down. We hears her sobbing. She looks up and she breaks down, and she said, this departure of Mui can be seen as a symbol of a country nearing its end. It's nearing its end. It's now the 60s. While Koyen has become a pianist and a composer, provides a symbolic meaning of a merging of the old and new. He's a bridge to the modern world for Mui and for us watching. He's a merging of old and new, but also of East and West. He's come under the Western influence. We see his library books. He's got the Steinway piano. And it's interesting because it's in contrast to the first half. We saw the father playing the Vietnamese violin, Chinese instrument, with his son on the flute. Now we're hearing Western music. He plays jazz, he plays classical music. At one point, he plays the Clair de Lune. And his home itself physically combines East and West, in contrast again to the home at the beginning. We see Koyen's westernized fiancée. She personifies the artificiality of modern society. She's frivolous. She dresses totally Western. She even, and as we begins to experience her own feelings, her own sensuality, her own feelings, we see more symbols that are almost of a fairy tale type. She slips her foot into the girlfriend's golden shoe, into the golden slipper, like a Cinderella, but she quickly slips her foot out. It's not for her. It's not for her. She finds the lipstick in the bed and she puts it in the drawer, thinks nothing of it. But then she puts on the outfit, the dress that was given to her, and the necklace and the bracelet. And she finds the lipstick and she puts that on as well. But then, at the same time, Koyen is beginning to realize his feelings for her. When she passes by in the red dress, notice how he looks. And then he looks at the statue. Remember, there's a statue of a beautiful woman on the piano. It's an ancient statue. It's to be also the beginning. It symbolizes Koyen's reacquainting himself with tradition, with the old world, with his Vietnamese side. He begins to draw a picture of the statue, but it looks like her. It looks like me. And she finds it in the drawer. Remember, when she goes for the lipstick, she pulls it out and she sees and she smiles that it's a picture that looks like her. And he is drawn to her now, especially now the girlfriend comes back and sees what's going on. Well, actually, she doesn't see yet. She feels herself being rejected by Koyen. He's busy playing the piano feverishly, and she's talking to him, and he ignores her. And she's beginning to feel the rejection. And then she looks in the window. I love how she looks. Well, she looks over, and she sees Mui coming in, and he's playing the piano, but she realizes what's happening. And then she comes back and she tears up the room. She tears up the room. She puts down the ring. I love it. She puts down the ring, which when Koyen comes in, he doesn't seem disturbed by it at all. He just picks up the ring, puts it in his pocket, Goodbye. But now he's free. And again, he wanders the house and he finds, she's been bathing, and he goes in one room, comes out. I love that scene. It's wonderful watching him going into the kitchen, coming out. He walks into another, and then finally he goes to her room, and we don't have to see what happens. We know what happens. But then also this symbolizes a total change. He hands her a book. He wants to teach her to read. He teaches her to write. And as they go, he has her sit up. There are little moments where she's bending over writing. He sits her up. She looks, and then we see her look again. It comes back to us. The papaya. She's preparing a meal, and she is peeling the papaya. And once again, she opens it up, and this time she takes out one of the little seeds and she plants it. It is a symbol of what's to come, because we transition right from that to hearing her voice. And as the camera comes down, we see she's pregnant. She's pregnant with his child. And she recites a little poem, and the camera tilts up, and we see the happy Buddha that represents happiness and harmony and tranquility within the household. The film is dominated by textures rather than plot. It's a series of episodes, but the textures of the film are incredible. They're lush, they're sensual, they're verdant, they're aromatic. It is like a Proust. The film itself is like a Proust Madelon. It is a story of remembrance. It's a story of a time gone, and trying to recapture it in the film. The director says of the title, "The smell of green papaya is for me a childhood memory of maternal gestures, It provides a useful metaphor. This is what I see. It provides a useful metaphor for Mui's evolution, for her transitions. In its green state, the papaya is considered a vegetable. It's considered a vegetable, and it is thought to blossom into a fruit later on, into its sweetness later on. So Mui is the papaya itself is symbolic of Mui. It's symbolic of Hung's remembrance of Vietnam. For him, it is a sweet memory. For him, it is a sweet memory. The cinematography artfully captures the images of a past remembered with love. The camera moves in long takes. If you remember in the film, the camera moves across the entire household in one take. We pass rooms. We pass through the inner garden. It captures life in this place, and just with the camera movements. And later on through Quay Yen's house, we follow her through the rooms just in one camera move. And there's an interesting reason for that, and I'll get to it in a second, revealing all the levels of the home, the lattice work, the woodwork, the street where the mother has the shop. We see it with the rickshaw. We see all of these, we see life going on in these places. We see the colors are rich. The colors are all rich in nature and in the objects. We see that detail in the film. And while the film is set in Vietnam, the entire film was shot on a soundstage constructed in Boulogne, France. The whole thing is shot inside. It was a whole soundstage was constructed just for the film. And it's a wonderful set. It's an absolutely wonderful set. The music in the film wonderfully captures the spirit of the whole story. In the first half, it's very traditional. We had traditional music of Vietnam, traditional Asian music. As I said, we see the father playing the Vietnamese violin and his son accompanies him on the flute. It's what we call diegetic music. A lot of the music arises out of the scene. The characters hear it the same way we do. Much of the music also is overscoring. But we get the diegetic music in the second half with Quay Yen playing the piano. We hear a very beautiful rendition of the Clair de Lune, which again captures the love story to come. Even the soundscape, the sounds in the film are beautifully done. When we hear the sound of planes overhead, it's almost like foreshadowing of what's to come. We hear talk of curfews. We hear people talk of curfews. We hear the sounds of the street. We hear the sounds of nature. We hear the crickets. We hear the frogs. All of it is texture. The film is laden with texture. And probably the most beautiful result of this film is that Tran Nhu Yen Ki, the actress who portrays Mui as an older woman, as a woman, she became the director's wife. He met her casting in the film, and they got married not long after the film was completed, and she starred in the other two films of his trilogy. She's wonderful. I mean, there's very little dialogue in the film. This film is all by expression. It's all by the shots that he catches in the film of nature. It says everything. I mean, I love it when she's bathing and he's looking for her towards the end there when he first is going to make love to her, and we see the little frog sitting on the leaf, and the frog it's as if it's looking into the bedroom. What's going to happen? Nature is attuned to Mui, as opposed to her only being attuned to nature. It's also attuned to her in the film. So it was I thought, an absolutely wonderful film. Very different kind of film, as even the director says, a different language. It's a visual language. This is cinema. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that he was influenced by another great director, Robert Bresson, French director, who worked in the same way, who saw the language of cinema very differently than most directors of the time, back in the 50s and 60s, the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And his style went on to become a template for many directors to come. Most of the famous directors in the world, including Bergman and Kurosawa, have learned from Bresson's films. So it's with very good reason that Hung, this director, was influenced first by Bresson, and then, as he says, he also loves Kurosawa, Asian director, and Bergman as well. So I hope you enjoyed it, and now I'd like to open it up for a discussion. I see there are some comments in the chat.
Yep.
Let's see what we got. Okay. The film is poetry in motion. This is from Arlette. From beginning to end, the characters evolve slowly but surely. Yes, they did. Thank you, Arlette. It is a gentle film. Every frame is beautiful, and the music so appropriate. Thank you, Susan Mann. Jackie, you struggled with the film. Okay, would you like to comment on that?
Well, we both thought the film was unbelievably visual, which we like being artists, but we just kind of felt like, I agree with Gail's comment. It was really slow. And it was, for me, it was really hard to get involved with the characters. So I did struggle with it. I thought it was, the art was what made it. Otherwise, it didn't.
Interesting. Well, it's with dealing with another culture. We're dealing with a period, and when you put it into context, it becomes much more meaningful. But it is sometimes difficult to adjust to another culture and to empathize with the characters, and I understand that. But I'm glad you appreciated the artistry of the film. Okay. I like it when people tell me the film is slow. Listen, it's an hour and 40 minutes. No matter how you look, it's an hour and 40 minutes. It runs at the same pace. It's not slow. It is slowly paced.
It's
slowly
melodic.
Yeah, it's that's how films sometimes
Shelly,
work on us. Yeah. Hi.
It's very slow moving. I love films that reveal themselves slowly like that, because it's a sense of life.
Yes.
Life unfolding.
Yes, it is, and that is Robert Bresson's influence on the film. Was there a scene cut from this version? I think we saw it with you at West Regional. There was a scene which showed more of them getting together after a bath. Do I remember it correctly? No. I'm sorry, Ed.
He imagined it.
Yeah, we see things in our mind's eye. That's an ellipsis, what I call an ellipsis. We see something going to happen, and then all of a sudden we cut to after it happens. So that's an ellipsis. But what that creates in our mind's eye is wondering what just happened. And we piece it together. Oh, I know what happened. So we know, because he does open the door quickly. We see her look up, and that's it. And then we cut. And that's the way it is. That's the way it is in the version you saw at West Regional. It's funny though that you remember it. The characters are all grieving in different ways. Yes, the mother, the grandmother, and the two younger sons grieve in their own ways. In the film, the mother for the loss of the daughter, the grandmother for the loss of the daughter, and the anger over the loss of the granddaughter, and anger over the daughter, and the husband may be wandering away because of his grief. And here's an interesting one: the pace lets your senses see the beauty. Nice, I like that. I like that. Okay, who's next? Anybody else? Anybody else wish to comment? Yes, Arlette.
Well, this can happen all over the world. Well, the father, while he was busy playing his instrument, he was very aloof and very astute. And I found a parallel between him and the other son when he grew up, when he was playing the piano. Very similar as far as the position, you know, playing the instrument, also kind of aloof and within himself, not surrounded by any elements surrounding him.
Are you talking about Quyen? Quyen wasn't his son. That wasn't his son.
No, well, who was the one playing the piano?
That was Quyen. That was the one that falls in love with her. That was the friend that came to visit.
My error. Well, that's who I meant.
Well, he was also in a way conflicted between, you know, tradition and modernity, and that's why he had that girlfriend. But then he started to reconnect through Mui. He was able to reconnect with his traditions and with who he is, and was able, in a sense, you know, he would combine the two.
Well, perhaps it was the culture in which people are taught how to play instruments and how to, you know, how to sit up and also be totally consumed by playing the instrument and not the surrounding area.
Yeah, well,
that could be a cultural thing.
Also, he was consumed by the music in a way of rejecting the girlfriend. She was touching his hair, and and he just didn't pay attention to her. He just kept playing the piano. It's like, it's time for you to go. he was playing send-off music. Okay, who else out there would like to comment?
I found it interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Marilyn.
I have a question. The director, was he South Vietnamese?
Yes, he was brought up in Saigon. He was brought up in Saigon. Yeah. And they were able to get out, you know, just as the war, just before the country fell completely. So he got out. But he has gone back, and he feels very strongly, he's very connected to that, but he still lives in France. He's much more attuned to the French culture than the Vietnamese culture, although he tries to combine the two. He tried. And remember, you know, Vietnam was a French colony.
It was.
You know,
it was French Indochina. Right?
Yeah.
French Indochina before it became Vietnam.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Right.
Very strong French influence in Vietnam.
Yeah, and there's a very beautiful film, which I think it did win the Academy Award, with Catherine Deneuve, entitled Indochine.
Yeah,
Indochine.
Yes.
Yeah, also beautiful movie.
Beautiful film.
Yeah.
Shelly?
I found it interesting that the culture accepted that you could marry your servant, that was an acceptable way of life.
That's an interesting comment, because we're not sure if that's true. I mean, usually they don't marry beneath their station. But I think that maybe it is a cultural aspect, because the mother even thought she would marry the oldest son.
Right.
So therefore she felt that way. And they were essentially a well-to-do family until the father decided to take everything. But it is an interesting aspect. But then again, he also was between two worlds. And I think that was one of the things that maybe his mother felt he should marry someone like the girlfriend, who maybe had money and was westernized. And here, you know, he was beginning to feel his roots. and he saw it in her, which is why also he begins to educate her. He's beginning to make her more aware of that world. But it is an interesting comment that leaves questioning, that leaves questions. Thank you. Bonnie.
I just wondered if the poem that she was reading at the very end, do you think there's any symbolism to that? Because that struck me as—
Well, the last line of the poem is the cherry tree is still the
a
cherry tree.
So that
It's
made
still a
me
cherry,
think,
meaning her.
meaning her. She's still a
Yeah.
servant.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
that's-
still
that's
who she
what I thought.
was. You know, she's still very much who she was.
Yeah,
And
that's—
also Vietnam. Vietnam is still the cherry. It's still, you know, for him anyway.
yeah.
He sees it that way. Thank you for bringing that up, Bonnie. Jackie, you had your hand up? Yeah.
I did. We just read the Taboo book, The Best We Could Do, which is set in Vietnam. I wondered if you picked this, and I should have said, to coincide with the big read for Broward County. I thought that was great that the two went together, and I wondered if you planned that.
Well, thank you. I'd like to say I did, but I didn't. I planned the film too far before. You know, it's called serendipity. I find myself caught up in that quite a bit. In serendipity, it seems I pick a film and all of a sudden everything around me coincides. So it worked out nicely. So thank you, but no, I didn't. I'd like to say, but maybe I will say that from now on. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. Stanley.
You want to discuss the reason for the close-ups of the ants and the episode where the ants and the melted wax? What was that all about?
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the things he talks about with Vietnam is the spirit that both hate and love can coexist in the same place. This was one of the things he brought up in interviews, and I think that's part of that is a representation, symbolic of that. But the close-ups are just of the nature. It was basically Mui's ability to observe nature. She was a curious little girl, and she was curious about the world around her. And we see nature as she sees it, the beauty, whereas the young boy sees it differently. He looks at the ant and he presses it into the melting sugar. He presses it in to kill it. He represents that sense of violence, that male sense of violence, and again his conflicting feelings about his father. So that's why, you know, we see the beautiful green frog coming out of the water, you know, with the spots on it. You know, to her, it's a beautiful object. The crickets, you know, they make their own music. And it becomes a pet for her. It's interesting. She has that little cage, which is very much like her little room, a place she's giving sustenance to the cricket the way she's receiving sustenance from the family, that they've taken her in, and they treat her well. They do treat her well, which is nice to see in the film. You know, he takes out from the film a lot of the tendencies of what was going on in the world at that time, purposely, because he's creating a good memory. The film is that of a good memory, and that's how we have to look at it. In context. Yes, Susan. Susan, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was being very quiet. I just wrote on the chat, I had seen the movie with you at West Regional the first time, but I didn't get a lot of the nuances, to tell you the truth. So this time, I really felt that the film drew me in because there was very, very little dialogue. And we're also taking this music class, and he's talking about, which is really true, that music makes the whole thing in the movie. It creates the mood and flows you along. And I thought that this was just meshed beautifully. It was just beautiful. And it was an interesting take on what happened. and how she changed and how she was treated in one and in the other. I thought it was very, very interesting, even though
Thank you.
it was slow, but that's okay. That's okay.
Well,
Slow is good. Slow is
yes,
good.
slow is good. Slow paced is good.
Yes.
Slow pace. But you reinforce what I always say, and I can't say it enough, of how you have to look at films. You have to see them twice, because the first time you watch it, and the second time you see it. The second time you see it, you really begin to see it. And that's important. It's especially films like this, because there is a lot going on, believe it or not, in the little detail. The vase, the how much what the vases meant. Remember, the cook says to her, "These vases are very expensive, and they mean so much to Madam." And then she has to sell a pair off so that they could eat. And she breaks one, and she feels, "Oh my God, this is it. They're gonna cut off my head." But the mother just touches her head and says, "Don't worry about it." Yet we hear a few scenes later how valuable the vases are. So we see, how well she's treated. Thank you, Susan. Who's next? Anybody? Yes. Yeah.
Okay. When the father came home and he died and he opened up his hand and he had the jewels in his hand, what was the significance of him bringing back the jewels?
I don't know if he was bringing them back or he was taking them and he had a heart attack. We don't know what happened.
But he just came home.
Them. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think he was returning. I think he'd come back to take them. And because he had stolen the money earlier on. And
he stole the jewels too.
They steal the jewels, and maybe he was returning with the jewels. Maybe he was feeling that he had to come home because he was sick. He was eventually dies in the next scene, but
maybe it's also showing the good and the bad, both sides.
Yeah, well, it is. It's he had no place else to go. Probably had no place else to go at that point in time.
And I was a little surprised that they treated her so well, but they didn't educate her at all.
She's a servant. There is always in cultures like that, you don't educate, because if you educate, they will overthrow you. That's the fear. It's fear. It's nothing more than fear to educate. Whereas Koyen has learned the way of the world, and he realizes, no, you have to educate. And he begins to educate her. Which is part of his love for her. But education is reserved. In India for so long, it was reserved. The untouchables, as they called them, couldn't be educated. They couldn't get work. They had to beg. So it is part and parcel to the culture. The lack of education.
Shelly, I don't even know that I agree that it's part of the culture. I think it's universal, and I think it's always based on fear. But this country was no better.
Yeah, okay, it's part of our culture too.
I think it is. It's part of the whole, Arab Muslim culture. It's just based, and it's always, I think, based on fear.
Well, even in China, Mao didn't push education except as propaganda. He gave everybody. It was interesting when you went to China back in the 70s or 80s after the Cultural Revolution, everybody had a TV set. Because Mao saw it as opiate for the masses. In other words, if I give them the TV and there's only one channel and it's only me as the star, that's all they're going to see and that's all they're going to learn. Sounds familiar. Hi, Wendy. Go ahead.
Right.
Oh,
And also Mao gave all the people of China that little book to read for all the information he wanted them to have for the Cultural Revolution. So everybody
Yes.
had that little red book to read to.
Yeah, absolutely. The
I don't
wonderful sayings of the Chairman Mao. Yes.
But I
Terrific.
also thought the part with a little where Wee Wee is scrubbing the floor so hard, and there's this pail of water, and that little boy puts his feet up, and he's teasing her, and he makes it spill, and she absorbs that. She doesn't call out for his assistance, help, and he's allowed to get away with this nasty little kid.
Yeah, well, especially when it comes and pees into the vase. She just looks at
that
him.
was all.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
Well, it was
writing his
class.
name in the sand.
Yeah, class distinction, class to do that, and she was a servant girl and could not do anything about it.
Yeah, that's again a cultural aspect of the film. Okay, anybody else?
Mhm.
Anybody
There's
else out
a
there?
couple more comments
Are there?
that I'll read. This
I
one was
shall.
from Susan. Do you want to read them, Shelley? There was one from Susan Mann and Bonnie Smith.
Yeah, I think it was so unique because they slowed down and experienced the film in a different way than other films. Yes. This again is the influence, as I said, of Robert Bresson. He is a director which, if you saw his films, you wouldn't say it's slowed down. You would say, why is the film standing still? It is the work of certain directors who understand the different language of cinema. Cinema is, and this film doesn't have much dialogue in it. And another great director, Jean-Luc Godard, once said that dialogue is the enemy of cinema. Dialogue is the enemy of cinema. And when you think about that, it's true, because we're there to look and to see. Now, I'm not saying we should go back to silent film, but the fact is that good writing will come through, but there's a lot of bad writing in cinema, which takes us away from that. But I think this film slows us down on purpose. It does. It's the lack of dialogue slows us down on purpose. And as I spoke of Robert Bresson, he had no music in his films. What was that? I heard a voice.
The body language was wonderful, and the eye contact from one to the other was very, very subtle and interesting to watch.
Yes, it was. It was interesting. There's a scene where I think it was the son he's crying, and Mui, as the little Mui, walks over, and she walks over stooped down, almost like the cook walked. It's that stooped look that servants have. It's almost as if they're bowing. That they have to bow constantly. The body language is very interesting in the film.
Well, it felt like Vietnam. It really did. The whole film felt as if you were.
Terrific. And Alice Soskin wrote, I love the photography, especially when you're viewing the scene through a lattice-like partition. Yes. It gives that, again, that look of, from our point of view, that we're peeking into a world. We're privy to a whole other world here. Which I find interesting, and that's what the film did for me the first time I saw it, which was back in the 90s. Was the fact that, wow, after seeing Apocalypse Now, after seeing The Deer Hunter, after seeing films of a country that was just totally destroyed, torn apart, literally, here I'm seeing a vision of that country of the way it was before. And it's just, you sit there and you say, my God, what do we do in this world? what war does to this world. It makes you reflect on it. Yes, Jackie, the cinematography was wonderful. There's no question about it. Thank you. Barbara was stunned when you were at it was filmed on a set. Yes. It's a remarkable set. It really is. Those things are really incredible when they create that, and then afterwards you learn what it is. This is about production, the production values to create things like that.
The house was one thing, but the street scene, when I read that was actually a set, I was like,
I know, especially the lighting, the lighting, everything that works. Yeah. It's funny. There was about 2 weeks ago, the designer Cerruti passed away. He was in his 90s, and he had designed, if you're familiar with him, he designed both men's and women's clothes, but he designed the costumes for about 113 films. 113 films. And he said he never once visited the set of a film. And they asked him why. He said, because it would destroy the magic for me of the movie. It would destroy the magic of the movie. He never wanted to see how it's made. I wanted to see the magic on the screen. As one, I enjoy it both ways. So you can't go by me. But there are people who it can destroy their whole idea of what happens, of how a film is made, and the final product. Thank you, Gloria. Gloria said, I enjoyed the film, the beauty of the film. Can you explain the significance of the title Green Papaya? I thought I did. The green papaya is symbolic, once again, of Mui's evolution through the story, because the papaya is first seen as a vegetable. And then over time, if you don't throw it away or if you don't skin it right away, it will grow into a fruit. It will blossom as a fruit. And that's what essentially happens to Mui. I didn't mean she started out as a vegetable, but she started out as, this young girl, innocent to the world, who blossoms into a beautiful woman. And that's the way he saw it. And the way he sees his country, the way he saw Vietnam before the fall.
I didn't
Anybody
know
else?
papaya was a vegetable.
Neither did I till I had seen the film.
The fruit.
I never realized it was a vegetable, that it's a fruit. You have to give it, but also, and you remind me by saying that is how they use it in a dish, almost like a lettuce, and how they prepared all those dishes. Food absolutely had a part in this film. I was getting hungry. I'm sure some of you reached for the phone to get some, to order some food. It's a good accompaniment to watch this film, but her dishes were incredible, especially the ones she was preparing later on in the film. And then she goes, I thought it was interesting, she goes and makes a Western breakfast for him. Remember, she made the eggs are sunny side up, and it's like she understands him and is catering to his world too. It's very interesting. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes.
You had said at the beginning that this was part of a trilogy. What were the names of the other films?
The second film is entitled Cyclo, CYCLO, Cyclo. And the third one is I will tell you in 1 second, I want to get it right. Where am I? Okay. Here we go. I'll tell you right away. Okay, it is the vertical ray of the sun. The vertical ray of the sun. Yeah.
Ray.
Shelley?
Also very beautiful. Also not much dialogue in the vertical ray of the sun. Also, but beautifully shot. Beautifully shot. And a nice story, much more of a story of three sisters whose mother held a secret from them, which is revealed. Yes. Susan. Yes, Susan.
Shelley?
It is a good movie. It's a good movie.
Shelley?
Yeah, Maurice.
Tell us about diegetic music again, please.
Sure. Diegetic music means it's music that arises out of the scene. It's in the scene. Characters listen to a radio, and we hear the music. They hear the music as well. It means that the characters within the scene are hearing the music, as opposed to a film score, which is, you know, mostly melodrama. You hear the music, but the characters don't hear it. It's just essentially it both will affect the mood of the film, but diegetic more so because it's affecting the characters at the same time. So the diegetic means from within the world of the film, within the world we're seeing, is basically what it means. So jukeboxes, radios, orchestras, they all create diegetic music for us.
Thank you.
Thank
I think
you.
we have time for just one more question, if there's any more questions. One more. If
Any
not,
questions?
Shelley, I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes,
I have a
yes.
question. I have a question that has nothing to do with the movie, but do you have any advice to us as to which of the foreign films that have been nominated for awards we should make sure we see? Because some of them are not streamable, they're theater only.
Yeah. Well, definitely The Hand of God, the Italian film The Hand of God, which is on Netflix,
Right.
which is a wonderful film.
Drive my car.
Yeah. Now Drive My Car is as opposed to this film, is a dialogue heavy film. But it's a wonderful story. It falls into if for those of you who remember My Dinner with Andre, it is that kind of structure. It's about two people who come together, and really it reveals who they are through their conversation, through conversations in a car. Literally, we cut away at times, but it's absolutely. I mean, it's also. I think it's also up for Best Picture as well as Best International Feature, and the director of the screenplay. Yeah, it's a wonderful film. I am only sorry that certain films didn't make it into the category. Parallel Mothers by Pedro Almodovar, The Hero, which is available. These were shortlisted films. Which means there are 10 films that they shortlisted and they picked 5 from that. The Hero, which is on Amazon Prime, which is Asghar Farhadi. He did The Salesman and A Separation, which both won Academy Awards previously, which is why they feel he might not have been nominated. Sort of enough already. They want to give somebody else a chance. Flea is an animated film, and it's also has a distinction of being nominated for Best Documentary Film.
Flea is on Hulu.
Yeah, Flea is on Hulu. Flea is available.
I saw it.
Yeah, there's something else that's available that I know is also available on Hulu.
No, the one that you're talking about is not available yet. It's coming to Hulu.
It is, okay.
The worst person in the world.
The worst person in the world, yeah.
Not yet.
Be on. Yeah, Bergman Island is available, which also was a film that was overlooked, is available on Hulu. It's a wonderful film.
What's the name?
There's Bergman Island.
Oh, okay.
Bergman Island with Tim Roth is on Hulu.
Okay.
I was disappointed that Passing wasn't nominated for anything. There's a number of films that just didn't make it in. And it's sad that, you know, they're winning films just the same.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, thank you, Shelley.
oh, and in 2 weeks, I will see you for Ida. Ida,
Great film.
an Academy Award-winning film by a Polish director. And it is, again, a wonderful evocation, taking us back to 1962 to meet Anna, who is an orphan brought up by nuns in a convent. She is a novitiate. She's about to take her vows. And but before she takes those vows, the Mother Superior says, you have to go see someone. And that changes the complexion of everything that Anna was brought up to believe. So I look very much forward to discussing that film with you. So until then, happy trails, happy films.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
movie.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yep,
Thank you,
thank you
Shelley.
so much. 2 weeks
Thank
now
you
is
very much.
My
2 weeks is
pleasure.
February 23rd. So we'll see you all then. Have a
Great.
nice night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. That was wonderful, Shelley.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
Okay. Have a
I'm
nice
going.
night. I'm going to
You
leave.
too. I'm going to have dinner.
Yep.
Take care. Thanks.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.